Greetings from Ophir and Parvaim or the Asia Pacific region. This video series is a very important commentary. Don't forget to subscribe on our channel and be updated. Please share this video in your Facebook and social media accounts. There are so many videos about Ophir as Philippines on YouTube which are just fine with us. However, we have noted dangerous mistakes on the popular video series about Ophir that can damage the identity of the Filipinos. We will explain them one by one in our upcoming video series for clarification. We have also noted that in the popular video series, the rivers of Genesis, Pison, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Parat were said to be in the bottom of the oceans. Putting the rivers in the bottom of the ocean is not only hilarious but is extremely non-biblical. The Bible was very clear about their location, setting Gihon as an example to locate the other rivers. Truly, a blind cannot guide another blind. They will fall onto a pit. They will plummet in the bottom of the ocean. I will repeat. Do not ever believe the information that the river of Genesis are in the bottom of the oceans. They are not. Although a small part of them indeed became submerged and will be explained in our series, it became submerged in the ocean because of the rising of the sea level. But the significant segments are all upland. Taking as an example the Gihon River, it is there stretching from the north down through Israel and farther down to the area once occupied by the ancient Ethiopian Empire. That is in the southern part of Africa. We will show the four rivers that were vaguely explained in the popular video series. Going back to the story about Ophir referring to the Philippines, we would like to remind all concerned that such subject is a matter of national interest because it is our identity as a nation. It is not a commodity for commercial exploitation. Jose Rizal, our national hero, had struggled so much for that identity. It was reflected in his last farewell, but sadly, very few Filipinos have realized the underlying message. While it is the freedom of everyone to upload videos, commentaries, and other materials on YouTube based on fair use, but this information that will model the history is another story. National identity is a national interest. It is part of our sovereignty symbolized by the Philippine flag. As far as we know, the earliest story about Ophir being Philippines was the original idea of Dr. Richard Vicente Narag in his book Rizal Code La Pluma de Sangre. Sadly, he was recommended to be deleted from Pinoy Wikipedia for being unpopular. Well, he is getting popular now. This commentary is not in any way connected to Dr. Narag, but we are giving him due credit he truly deserves. To all Filipino viewers, let us not allow our cherished heritage to be exploited again by foreigners who could distort our history. Popular videos about Ophir inaccurately and erroneously portrayed the biblical characters that are critical to the identity of the Filipinos as a Hebrew nation. Portraying King Solomon as a white man or not mentioning that he belongs to a black heritage prevented the Ophirians or the Filipinos from connecting to him and to the entire Hebrew family as one blood and one race. We are the watchmen. For so many times in the past, outsiders had confused the Hebrew identity through inaccurate portrayal of biblical stories and characters in popular movies. Not with Ophir this time. Never again. Let us begin tracing our identity before it becomes totally going into the wrong hands. We are calling the attention of Filipino historians to get involved. For many centuries, since time immemorial, the Negritos, Agta, Eta, Igorots, and many other so-called cultural minority or indigenous people had been tagged as from being from unknown origin and other wishy-washy descriptions. The identity and prestige deserved by our ancestors was long overdue. Fortunately, the Eskaya Tribe of Bohol province, whose ancestors claimed to have descended from the builders of King Solomon's temple, are still there today. Their presence in the Bohol province is guiding us back to our Hebrew family. The Eskaya people holds the key that will unlock the mysterious relationship we have with King Solomon. To begin with this commentary, take a look at the picture. Which do you think is more likely the archetype of the true King Solomon? Want some clue? Do not be misled by pointed nose and white skin. King Solomon described himself in the Songs of Solomon in the Bible. He said, "I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me." From Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. If you believe on a white King Solomon, our divine identity will be forever doomed. Some overly intelligent Bible experts say that the verse was only symbolic and not literal. Well, let us take a look at Noah. The birth of Noah was described in detail in the book of Enoch. This could be one of the reasons why they did not canonize the book. However, canonized or not does not mean the book is useless as a reference. It must be remembered that the Hebrew Ancestry considered it as a cherished part of the heritage that they hid the book in a cave. To summarize the account of Noah's birth, it is written in the book of Enoch. After a time, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech. She became pregnant by him and brought forth a child, the flesh of which was as white as snow and red as a rose, the hair of whose head was white like wool, and long, and whose eyes were beautiful. When he opened them, he illuminated all the house like the sun. The whole house abounded with light. Then Lamech his father was afraid of him, and flying away came to his own father Methuselah, and said, "I have begotten a son, unlike to other children. He is not human, but resembling the offspring of the angels of heaven, is of a different nature from us, being altogether unlike to us." Let us analyze this. Lamech flying away to his father, exclaiming, "He is not human, his flesh is white, he is unlike any other children." These descriptions strongly suggest that black is the normal in their ancestry and in the clan. That is why he was afraid of Noah. Our logical inference is that Noah was born with albinism. This is a rare disorder where melanin formation that gives a dark skin color got impaired, hence became white-skinned. Obviously, such condition was poorly understood in ancient days. It should be noted also that the verse said angels were having children with humans. We reserve this topic for future video series. We will explain what is meant by the angels are having children with humans. So, we have established that Noah's ancestry is of a black race. Now, let us consider the color of the true Israelites. To trace, we need to look at the table of nations starting from Noah. Remember, having the albinism disorder does not mean that Noah's children necessarily inherited the disorder. Thus, we could presume that Noah's children, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, are all black men. Here is an extract from the Table of Nations. We intentionally skipped some personality to keep the presentation brief and simple. On top of the chart, you see Noah, and below him are his three sons. You have in there Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons of Noah are presumed in here as blacks, but this presumption will be proven as we go on with the discussions. Being blacks, it is naturally expected that all of them will produce descendants of their own color. So, if Shem will have a black race, similarly, Ham will have a black race. The Israelites did not leave archaeological portraits in observance of the no graven images commandment. Thus, historians use literary descriptions to describe them. We could ascertain the color of the true Israelites by comparing them with the descendants of Ham, being their bloodline cousins. Remember, Shem and Ham are brothers. Let us consider Mizraim, the son of Ham, from whom Egyptians descended. Whatever the color of the ancient Egyptians is essentially the color of the Israelites who descended from Shem. A direct microscopic examination of skin melanin content from several Egyptian mummies from Mariette excavations revealed that ancient Egyptians are unquestionably among the black races, and that Egyptians share the B blood type with black Africans. Our reference is The African Origin of Civilization by Diop Sheikh Anta. Not yet convinced? Take a look at these archaeological materials. King Tut and his grandmother are undeniably black. The Great Sphinx of Giza shows a negroid feature. This means that if Egyptians are blacks, then it is impossible for their Israelite cousins to be white with pointed nose. They could never have a European feature as portrayed in the popular Ten Commandments movie. It only takes a little common sense to understand this. This is not a rocket science. Now let us go back to King Solomon. Was King Solomon white or black? Again, just a little common sense. It is very much impossible to have a white King Solomon with pointed nose and white skin. In fact, King Solomon said, "I am black." Period. Now that we have established the King Solomon to be a black man, it will be easier to determine the identity of the Filipino people. We will explain how the Negritos are connected and related to King Solomon and to the entire Hebrew family. It is there in the Table of Nations. Before we connect the Filipinos or Ophirians to King Solomon, let us further prove that the Israelites are of black race, including the tribe of Judah. We will recall the history of the Israelites from the time when Jerusalem had fallen into the hands of the Roman Empire in 70 AD. From there, we will proceed to the modern day to see what happened to the Israelite Jews. This once again will highlight the identity of the Israelite Jews. After the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Israelites were scattered. Most of them fled to the African continent to seek refuge and blend with other men of the same color. The fall of Jerusalem was only the beginning. It was predicated in Deuteronomy 28 that they will be sent again to slavery, transported by ships, and shackles were placed on them. They are to be sold as slaves. This event clearly describes who were the true Israelite Jews. Look for shackles and see who were loaded on ships. It's as simple as that. Looking at world history, who or what particular people were sold as slaves with shackles? Who were loaded onto ships like cargoes? Obviously, it is the black Negroes during the transatlantic slave trade. They were captured from Africa, and certainly they were the descendants of the Israelite Hebrews from King Solomon's race. Today, the remnants are still there in Africa with their Jewish belief system. This has been proven even by genetic research, and they are black people. Therefore, their King Solomon is a black man. Now finally, the truth will set the Ophirians free to connect with their origin. Here is how they are connected to the Hebrew ancestry together with King Solomon. According to the Book of Jubilees, after the flood, Peleg and Joktan parted ways at Misha, which is the modern-day Iran. We have to remember that Peleg and Joktan, Yoktan in Hebrew, are the only two sons of Heber. Heber is the father of all Hebrew nations. Therefore, all Hebrews can only be traced either as descending from Peleg or descending from Joktan. Peleg went to the west and fathered the Israelite nations from which King Solomon descended, while Joktan with his sons Ophir, Havilah, and Sheba, as well as Tarshish, headed to populate the east or the Orient. In the Bible, Orient is called Parvaim from the Sanskrit word Purva. Now let us not be confused with Havilah. In the Bible, there are two Havilah. The first Havilah is from the bloodline of Shem. That is the son of Joktan, which is the brother of Ophir. So, Havilah, Ophir, and Sheba are brothers, all sons of Joktan. The other Havilah descended from the bloodline of Ham. That Havilah is the son of Cush. They occupied the African continent. So, that is to avoid confusion. So, going back to our discussion, let us take a look at the historical account written by Jesuit historians led by Father Francisco Colin. They said that the earliest primary settlers of the Philippine archipelago were Ophir together with Havilah and Tarshish. By the way, Tarshish is the son of Javan from the bloodline of Japheth. Parallel to that information, the Manila Times published that the earliest settlers of this archipelago were the Negritos who engaged in gold mining. So, how do the Negritos fit into the puzzle? Here it is. Joktan or Yoktan in Hebrew means diminutive or small race. Knowing that they are also blacks, clearly pictured the Negritos. They are the small black men. They are the descendants of Joktan and his sons Ophir, Havilah, and Sheba. And they were gold miners. Are you not wondering how King Solomon came to know about the gold of this land? Common sense. The Negritos were his relatives. It was the Negritos who supplied gold to King Solomon. It was only the Negritos who were known to be engaged in gold mining in ancients of time on this location. So are you seeing now how the Negritos connect with the Black King? This is a hard pill to swallow. Did King Solomon really send ships to Ophir, Philippines during the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem? Yes, he did. The Eskaya Tribe of Bohol province, whose ancestors claim to have descended from the builders of the temple, are still there in Bohol today. They are the remnants of the builders of King Solomon's temple. It has to be remembered that in the Bible it was written that King Hiram supplied Sidonian workers to help King Solomon build the temple. Take note that the workers are from Sidon. Recently, a genetic research on skeletons found in an ancient port of Sidon proved that what we came to know as Phoenicians or Phoenicians are the Canaanites from Sidon who had knowledge of the seas. In short, the Sidonian workers supplied by King Hiram to King Solomon were the Phoenicians who are shipbuilders and seafarers as described by the Bible. They embarked a journey to Ophir to gather materials for the temple. Their route will essentially pass along Sumatra. That is why Justerol, a Filipino historian, said that the earliest known origin of the Eskaya tribe who claimed to be builders of King Solomon's temple was from Sumatra. Their claims of being descended from the builders of King Solomon points their origin far beyond Sumatra, extending to Sidon, which is the modern-day Lebanon. They were from King Hiram's workers supplied to King Solomon to gather materials from Ophir. The presence of Eskaya tribe in Bohol province supports that Philippines is the biblical Ophir. In summary, the Ophirians or Filipinos can only find their place in the Hebrew ancestry by recognizing the true personality and identity of the Hebrews through King Solomon. According to the Jesuit historians led by Francisco Colin, the earliest settlers of this archipelago were Ophir, Havilah, and Tarshish. Now take note that Tarshish descended from the bloodline of Japheth. Local history published by the Manila Times tells us that the earliest settlers of this archipelago were the Negritos who were engaged in gold mining. This commentary deduced the connection that Negritos were the descendants of Joktan, whose race is described in Hebrew as a small diminutive race or people. Combining the black color of the Hebrews clearly portrayed the Negritos as referring to the descendants of Joktan and his sons Ophir, Havilah, Sheba. Since it was only the Negritos who were engaged in gold mining during that ancient times, and knowing that they were related to King Solomon, having descended from the same Hebrew father, it is deduced that the Negritos were the gold miners of King Solomon. The Canaanites of Sidon, known in history as the Phoenicians, were the transporters of King Solomon's gold from Ophir to Israel. Their remnants were the Eskaya Tribe of Bohol, whose ancestors claimed to be part of that ancient event of building King Solomon's temple. All this information corroborated and supported that Philippines was the biblical Ophir. Now Filipinos are freed by the truth that they are Hebrews. They are Ophirians.